What's up, Math 8? Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we're going to be looking at lesson 4.3, reflections, and we're going to be able to identify and use reflections. The first thing we want to know is what is a reflection, and that is just when you reflect over a specific line, and that's going to create a mirror image. That line of reflection is the line that the figure is reflected over. Make sure you pause the video here so you can write down our 2 vocabulary words, and when you're ready to go on, click play. All right, so the first 3 questions are just examples of, is the blue figure a reflection of the red figure? For number 1, the answer is no, because it's not flipped over the line of reflection. This one would actually be a translation. Number 2 is also no, because it's also a translation. Number 3, however, is yes. That one is a reflection because you're seeing the blue figure being flipped over and it's a mirror image of the red figure. What we're going to do now is we're going to try to draw this original triangle and then reflect it over the x-axis. So the very first thing we would want to do is to make sure we plot our original points. So let's go ahead and take a moment to do that. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created the original triangle ABC at the current given points. Next it says draw the reflection in the x-axis. So one thing you probably should do is take a highlighter or a colored pencil and you're going to draw a line where your line of reflection is. My line of reflection is here on the x-axis, so this is going to make it a little bit easier for me to reflect each of my points. If I have A only one step away from the x-axis, I'm going to go one step away on the other side to find A prime. Same thing for B. I'd start at B and count 1, 2, 3 steps away from the x-axis. So I need to go 1, 2, 3 steps away on the other side. And then finally, C is only 1, 2, 3 steps away again. So 1, 2, 3 steps away on the other side and label it C prime. Once you connect your points together, you should notice that your triangle has now been reflected across the x-axis. The new coordinates of the image are going to be as follows. A prime is now at -1, -1. B prime is now at -1, -3. And C prime is now at 5, -3. Notice how each one of these changed the second value, which is the y value, in their ordered pairs. The 1 went to a negative, the 3 went to a negative, and the 3 went to a negative. Let's see what happens now when we reflect something across the y-axis. Again, the first thing we're going to do is start by drawing the original pre-image. Let's go ahead and do that first. All right, here I have my original image, or my pre-image of PQRS. The next thing I need to do is find out where my reflection line is, and that's on the y-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a highlighter or a colored pencil and just draw a line down my line of reflection so I can clearly see what I'm trying to reflect over. Now I need to reflect those points over. All I need to do is count how far away is the letter from the line of reflection. P is 1, 2 points away from the line of reflection, so I would continue to go 1, 2 points in the opposite direction. S is 1, 2, 3, 4 points away, so 1, 2, 3, 4 points away for S prime. R is 1, 2, 3, 4 points away as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how it's still right under the letter S. And Q is only 1 step away from the y-axis, so it's 1 step away on the other side. As I connect my points, I should be able to see that my new image is a reflection of the old one. Next up, we have the vertices of a rectangle are given. So what we're going to do is draw the figure first. We're going to reflect it in the x-axis, and then we're going to draw the figure and its reflection in the y-axis. Are the images in part A and B congruent? So first, let's go ahead and start drawing that original figure. Okay, now that I have that drawn, I'm going to start with drawing this reflection over the x-axis. Here is the x-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect this original figure over the x-axis. B is only 1 step away from the x-axis, so it's B prime would be only 1 step away from the other side. A is 1, 2, 3, so 1, 2, 3 steps away. C is only 1 step away, so only 1 more step on the other side. And D is also 3 steps away, and it's going to match up right there with the letter A. Again, it should look like a reflection over the x-axis. They are both the same distance from the x-axis, and it's a mirror image. Now let's reflect over the y-axis. The y-axis, I'm going to still use my original shape and just reflect it now over the y-axis. So C is one step away from the y-axis. So C, we'll call this C double prime to show the different reflection will be one step away. D is also going to be one step away. A is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps away. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for A double prime. And then B is also 4 steps away. So B will continue to be right there matched with A. So now we have a reflection from the y-axis, and it should be a mirror image of the pre-image there. Are the images in part A and B congruent? Yes. A reflection does not change the size or shape. Okay, let's see what happens now when we reflect something over the x-axis and then figure out what happens with a summary. So if I'm going to reflect the shape over the x-axis first, the first thing I need to do is write my original point. So I is at 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So 3, negative 2. L is at negative 1, negative 2. So I'm just filling these in. K is at negative 1, 2, 3, 1. And J is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay? If I were to reflect point I over the x-axis, here's I and here's the x-axis. I would go 1, 2 to start it and 1, 2 to finish it. So I prime reflected over the x-axis is now at 3, positive 2. Okay? But if I reflected I over the y-axis, maybe I'll use a purple for this one. If I reflect I over the y-axis, I is 1, 2, 3 steps away. So 1, 2, 3 steps away to get I prime here. That's at negative 3, negative 2. Okay, so when you reflect over the x-axis, the y value changed. And when you reflect over the y-axis, the x value changes. So watch what happens now if I try to reflect the next shape or the next letter. Starting with letter J, x-axis is here. J is 1, 2, 3 steps away. So 1, 2, 3 steps away. That point is 3, negative 1, 2, 2, negative 3. Notice again how only the y value changed. But if I reflected across the y-axis for letter J is 1, 2 steps away from the y-axis, so 1, 2 steps on the other side. It is now at negative 2, positive 3. And notice how my x value changed. So we could probably do this with letter K. If I reflect over the x-axis, I'm just going to change my y value, which means only my 1 will change. Negative 3, negative 1. But if I reflect the letter K over the y-axis, my x will change. That means negative 3 becomes a positive 3, and everything else stays the same. We can prove that here. Here's K. K reflected over the x-axis is 1 step away, so it's 1 step away down here. This is my negative 3, negative 1. And reflecting over the y-axis, we'll send K across 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And there it is at 3, positive 1. So let's try that with letter L. Negative 1, negative 2 is going to reflect over the x-axis to finish changing the y value. So that's negative 1, positive 2. Over the x-axis, I'm just going to change over the y-axis would just change the x value. So that's a positive 1, negative 2. Again, you can check that by actually reflecting it. I'm going to erase all these just so our brain isn't getting too confused. Okay, negative 1, positive 2 for letter L ends up here. And notice it's a reflection from before. And 1, negative 2 is another L. It's a reflection over the y-axis here. Okay, so when you reflect over the x-axis, the y changes. And then when you reflect over the y-axis, the x changes. And remember, your x and y coordinates are like this, okay? So reflecting across the x-axis just means you'll have x negative y. Reflecting across the x or the y-axis, you would have negative x comma y, okay? A triangle has coordinates of negative 19, 100, 35, negative 12, and 7, 5. Whoa! What are the coordinates of its image if it's reflected over the x-axis? Remember, an x-axis reflection changes the y values, so I'm going to go ahead and circle those y values for you. Go ahead and tell me what would happen to those y values as we reflected across the x-axis and write down those points. All right, so my new points would be negative 19, negative 100, because again, that's changing it to its opposite. The next point would be 35, 12, and the final point would be 7, negative 5. Okay, that is going to conclude our video today on 4.3 reflections. Thanks so much for tuning in and hope